To my mind, there are three really, really critical things. And I'd like to hear your opinion on them. The budget, the debt, we've already talked about. The other two are energy, the energy policy, which fuels this economy, fuels the capitalist system. And the third one for me is embedded bureaucracy. We have an enormous embedded one, and how do we unembed it? Specifically, when somebody mentioned we haven't been able to thin our forests, where did we ever get the perception that the federal government could own anything? And I understand they own most of the land in the West. They may manage it for us, but how can they own anything?
Okay, we have 2-minute answers. Pick one. Do you want to hear about energy or the embedded bureaucracy?
Energy.
Energy policy.
Thank you. All three are great questions. Energy, let's drill. Let's get off foreign oil. Let's get off the dependency of the foreign countries dictating to the way we live. Sarah Palin said it best back in 2000, drill baby, drill. When we decide to shut down the Environmental Protection Agency and bring it down to the Arizona legislature, I have full confidence in that state legislature that will allow drilling for not just natural gas, but other entities of energy. We need to do this. We have the resources. I support the Keystone Pipeline. I support the ANWR project. It's time that we rely on ourselves. We have the capabilities, we have the technology, and guess what? We have millions of Americans who need jobs. Isn't this all about jobs in the economy? We have an administration who wants to stifle this, wants to say no to this, no to that. Remember I said in opening remarks, elected officials work for you. Has this administration worked for you? Has Congress worked for you? So then this August, let's make some changes. Let's make some new faces in D.C. who support your values and your beliefs. I am one that will go fight for those issues day in and day out. Guarantee that, because I want to see America back to work. I don't want to see the high unemployment rate. And the other thing we need to do, and they did the right step, is on the health care, is repeal it. We need to abolish it and get rid of it and let the private sector handle it. We are capitalism at its best, and when it works right, we prosper. Well, let's get right to it. Let's start drilling, and let's get it back to states' rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian mentioned a lot of the things we need to do. Drill here, drill now, and all of the above energy strategy. We need it all. We need it for energy independence. We need it for cheaper sources of energy to get the economy going. Keystone Pipeline, should have been doing it a long time ago. In Arizona, what a lot of people don't realize is that there is an all-out war on coal, and it's going to affect us if the Navajo generating station is shut down. The EPA would love nothing more than to do that. And it's not just the Navajo generating station. It's Cholla, it's Coronado, around the state, particularly in northern Arizona, is going to be handicapped considerably. I can tell you that the providers here, APS, SRP, and others who manage these, are dead scared right now about what is being proposed by the federal government. So we've got to get beyond that. If we're concerned about the environment, we ought to realize that the best thing for the environment is prosperity. If you look around the world, countries that are prosperous, that do well, can afford to take care of the environment. We ought to remember that. That's when we do best. So drill here, drill now, all of the above. We've got to ensure that the federal government allows drilling and exploration on federal lands as well. At the easements, you name it, they're blocking it every step of the way, particularly when it's sources of energy that this administration doesn't like. Whether anything fossil fuel related, they simply don't like. So we've got to do it all. Anybody who says that the future is wind or sun, that's in it, but we've got to do all of the above. Thanks.
Well, I agree. We need to have a Keystone Pipeline. But Congressman Flake was the only one who, in the Arizona Republican delegation, who voted against it. We need to open energy exploration. That's my family business, where it came from, was energy.
was from gasoline stations. That's what we need to have. We need to not be sending billions of dollars to our enemies. We do not need to be importing products from other countries. We need to be doing it here and now. Not only is it a good policy just for energy costs, it's also a good policy if we use federal lands to do it. It will produce royalties that will help us pay down the biggest problem, the national debt. We need to do it here, now, and everywhere. The biggest problem we have a bunch of people who go to Washington, D.C. and talk about this and say this year after year. Has anyone not heard that we need to do more drilling since the 1970s? We haven't built a refinery in this country. We haven't permitted anything. Whose fault is that? How long is long enough until we finally say, you know, we're not going to keep sending the same people to Washington, D.C. We're not going to send people who don't understand what it's like out here in the real world. We have to change that fundamental principle first. That is extremely important. We cannot continue to depend on people who say one thing and do another thing. We need to have consistency right now. We are at risk of being the first generation to leave this country worse than how we found it. That's a frightening thought. That's not something that any of us in this room want to do. We don't want to leave a world worse off for our children. And we need to start doing things now, immediately, that will make it so that is not so.
Having a history working for a nuclear power company and also for Byron Jackson oil companies, I understand the drill here and the energy system. What I want to point out, though, is that the question the lady asked actually is a two-part question, and there's one answer to it. It's called Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, I believe, which says the federal government cannot own land anywhere in this country except 10 square miles around D.C. and military bases. So if you take them out of land management, we restore the sovereignty of all the states, who then decide where they mine, where they drill for gas, oil, copper, zinc, lead, whatever. The power is in the Constitution, and it's been taken away from us by elected officials who circumvented it by setting up departments in the White House that then control all of our lives and are making slaves out of us. That's exactly what's going on. So it's not like we need new technology to do this. All we have to do is apply and enforce the Constitution that our forefathers, who I personally believe were the greatest generation we ever had. They gave us this country. All we've been doing is taking care of it and defending it since then. We're caretakers. In the last 50, 60 years, we haven't done a very good job of it. So my recommendation is enforce the Constitution, starting with the House and the Senate. Defund these departments. If you don't give a guy in the Forestry Service a check, he won't be there to stop you from harvesting trees. If you don't give someone in the Energy Department a check, he can't stop us from drilling. We have a Constitution, by God, and that's what we're supposed to set up with. And we're supposed to defend this country and govern that way. If we all truly believe that God granted us this country, then why don't we start acting like it? I'm tired of this, and I'm tired of all the political answers to it. We have the paper. It's called the Constitution. As Americans, learn it, understand it, and then expect your elected officials to abide by it and enforce it. Thank you.